This is Bart. Bart is my cat. He's about 2 years old and he's a jerk, as cats often are. This is the cat from Stray. The cat from Stray looks like Bart. So when I first saw the trailer from Stray, I fell in love. I was immediately intrigued with the concept of running around what looked like a cyberpunk robo-village as a cat and causing general mayhem. And as the release date came closer, I was surprised by the announcement that the game would be free for those who signed up for the new PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium tier. So I downloaded it with the intention of just getting into general cat mischief and being able to explore what looked like an extremely interesting world. What I got was an indie experience that has rivaled some of my all-time favorite story experiences in any game. Hi, I'm LittleBobby, and I'm here to present you with a 5/9 direct review of Stray. Before we go any further, if you're new here, please subscribe and click the notification bell if you like what we do. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like or a comment in the comment section down below. As someone who's always loved cats, I didn't need much more than the ability to run around and experience things from a viewpoint of the cat. However, the story for Stray is much more relatable and emotional than I thought it could be. The story begins with a stray cat that hangs out with his pack of cat friends. They casually move through a world that seems abandoned. We see early on they're moving through what seems to be some sort of manufacturing or processing facility that's been overgrown with vegetation. It gives us our first clue as to what's actually going on in the world, visual storytelling without beating you over the head with anything. As the cats move through the facility, our hero cat fails a jump as the pipe shifts and falls into a dark abyss of the sewers below, way underneath the surface. All the while, his cat friends can do nothing but watch him fall. The scene was heartbreaking, and you see the cat lose its whole way of life, and it seems to be somewhat seriously injured for a few moments. Upon waking in the sewers below, the cat proceeds through in an attempt to find its way back to the surface. Along the way, it's attacked by some strange bug-like creatures known as Zurks. The Zurks chase the cat through some abandoned streets until the cat finds an apartment that it can escape to. In the apartment, the cat sees a computer monitor that says "Need help" and seems to be trying to direct it to find a body. After figuring out how to enter a secret room in the apartment, the cat finds a small drone body and places it where the monitors have directed it to. The drone comes to life and is revealed to be an AI consciousness that's been trapped in the computer systems of a nearby city for possibly hundreds of years. It introduces itself as B12, a machine consciousness that was assisting a scientist in finding a way to solve a crisis of the nearby underground. B12 helps the cat to operate the front door of the apartment and escape to the nearby city. And it turns out this city is filled with robots, and they are initially terrified of the cat. Sounding a citywide alarm and retreating to their homes in fear, the robots avoid the cat at all costs. The cat wanders through this city until it finds a robot known as the Guardian. The Guardian is the one who realizes the cat is not a danger to the citizens and that they were fleeing because they thought it was some new form of Zurk. It turns out the Zurks are a form of life that consumes everything they come in contact with, including metal. These robots, who are just as vulnerable as the cat to the little omnivorous critters, have sealed themselves from anything that comes in from the outside. With the Guardian confirming that the cat isn't trying to eat them, he releases the lockdown on the city, and we are suddenly greeted with a fascinating society that has evolved in the world under the surface. The Guardian instructs the cat to visit Momo, an outsider to this culture who has been trapped in the lower levels of the underground city for many years. Momo is extremely despondent and he misses his group of friends that were attempting to find a way to the surface to escape the underground. They went looking for the outside, and Momo was too cowardly to journey with them, with the Zurks present in the sewers. After giving his notebook to the cat and B12, Momo instructs the cat to leave him alone. B12, realizing that Momo is lonely, decides to look and see if they can find any information on Momo's friends. The cat and B12 visit the apartments of the other outsiders, Doc, Svaltazar, and Clementine. The cat discovers their notebooks where they were left behind and returns them to Momo. While flipping through Doc's notebook, Momo discovers that Doc was working on a way to destroy Zurks and had plans to repair the transceiver that the group was using to try and communicate with the upper levels of the underground. The transceiver broke many years prior to the cat arriving, and Momo had lost all hope of ever communicating with his friends again. With the retrieval of Doc's plans, Momo sends the cat to a nearby radio tower that's been infested with Zurks to restore power and hopefully give a boost to the signal transceiver. After returning to the tower, Momo uses a signal amplifier at a local bar to boost the transceiver signal. Once there, Momo boots up the transceiver and actually reaches someone. It turns out that it's Svaltazar, and Momo has his hopes for escape restored. After the short conversation with Balthazar, a robot named Seamus wakes up from his drunken stupor and tells Momo he's being foolish for trying to reach the surface. After Seamus leaves, Momo informs the cat and B12 that Seamus is Doc's son, and he's had a really hard time since Doc was lost trying to find the surface. Momo says that Seamus might be able to help them find more clues to what happened to Doc, and takes the pair to Seamus' apartment. After slipping into the apartment through a small vent, Seamus continues to reprimand the cat, saying that his father left him and there's nothing they can do. The cat and B12 find a secret room in Seamus' apartment that served as a lab for Doc's experiments, and they find a tracker that might be able to find out where Doc went. After negotiating with a local electronic expert robot, the cat and B12 get the tracker fixed, and Seamus leads the cat to the exit of the city where Doc's signal leads. Following the trail, the cat has another run-in with more Zurks and finally finds a building where it turns out Doc has been trapped for many years. Doc has a weapon that will allow them to fight the Zurks and asks the cat to repair the generator nearby so they can get the 1.21 gigawatts of power needed.
1.21 gigawatts!
Once powered, Doc figures out a way to get the defluxor installed into B12 so the cat can defend them all against the Zurks. Doc, simply wanting to find a way home back to the slums where his son is, helps lead the duo back to the underground city. After reaching home, we see a reunion between Doc and Seamus. The cat and B12 then proceed with Momo through the sewers on the other side of the city to find the way to the lift that might help them reach the upper levels and to the outside. After making their way as a trio, there comes a point where Momo can no longer continue, but asks the cat and B12 to let his friends know that he was eventually brave enough to leave the slums. Continuing on, the cat and B12 are confronted with huge swarms of Zurks, and they eventually discover that the Zurks are evolving when it's revealed that large eyes are growing out of the walls and are acting as a hive mind that directs the Zurks to where the pair are. After being cornered and overrun, the cat is surrounded and B12 shorts himself out using the defluxor that Doc made to fight the Zurks, giving the cat just enough time to escape. The cat grabs B12 and runs for its life as it no longer has defenses against the all-consuming horde. After escaping through a lockdown door, the cat wakes B12, who thanks the cat for saving him and realizes that the cat is now really his friend. After continuing forward through the last bit of the sewers, the duo finds their way to Ant Village. Upon entering, they come across a machine similar to the one that was in the room of the apartment where the cat found B12. B12 then remembers that he was the scientist that he thought he was helping, and he recalls there was a plague that wiped out all of humanity, including his family, leading to the rise of the companions, the robots we've met along the journey so far. He attempted to move his consciousness into a robot body but ended up trapped within the network for countless years. Having this realization causes B12 to have something of an existential crisis, remaining silent and refusing to speak until the pair come across Balthazar, who has set himself up as a resident of Ant Village. Balthazar tells the pair that they need to proceed up further to the midtown sector of the underground to find Clementine if they want to reach the outside. After passing through a subway station, the pair find themselves in Midtown, a bustling hub for the middle-class residents of the underground. The city is a hyper-modern, neon-filled mini-metropolis filled with tons of residents and an oppressive police force that seems to be led by sentinels, small drone-like robots that are constantly hunting for anyone causing trouble. They find Clementine in her apartment in the residential district, and she recruits them to infiltrate the Nico Corporation to obtain an atomic battery. She plans to use the battery to power the subway that the cat and B12 passed in the station to reach the highest levels of the underground where the most powerful citizens reside. Meeting with her contact, who goes by the moniker Blazer, the cat and B12 sneak into the Nico facility and avoid detection by sentinels until reaching the atomic battery. Once they have the battery in hand, they return to find Clementine has made her way to a local nightclub with Blazer. Once they reach the upper suite, the cat and B12 find that Clementine has been tied to a chair, betrayed by Blazer, and the cat and B12 are separated and thrown in jail alongside Clementine. The cat wakes up in jail and escapes and rescues Clementine. Working together, the two try and find their way out when they stumble across a location where B12 is being contained. The cat decides to save B12 and sneaks around the sentinels patrolling the area to retrieve its friend. B12 awakes and thanks the cat again for saving him, and the trio set out to escape the prison. After stealing a car, they outrun the sentinels, and Clementine uses herself as a diversion to allow the cat and B12 to reach the subway with the battery. After powering up the subway and taking it to the control area of the underground, the pair discovers a set of companions that seems to be much more subservient and less individualistic than the companions they have met throughout the rest of their time in the underground. They break into the control room and discover it's been an unfathomable amount of time since humans have been alive, and that no one has been in the control room for possibly centuries, leaving the entire society of companions abandoned with no hope of escape before their break-in. As they work together to power down the systems and release the roof control, B12 is hit with a series of overcharges from the security systems. Powering through the shocks, B12 and the cat finally release the roof controls, but B12 reveals that its drone body is unable to carry forward. As the roof above opens for the first time in what might be millennia, B12 thanks the cat for being a true friend before powering down one last time. The cat rests for a moment with B12's drone body before setting out for the main door. The servant companion at the main door releases it, and the cat ventures to the surface in order to find its cat friends. As the cat ventures out of frame, we see the computer systems come back to life, giving the indication that B12 may have returned to the network and may live on somewhere. Stray's story is much more complex than I would have initially thought, and was incredibly relatable for a story with no human characters. While discussing the game with Lethal, my fellow 5/9 direct content creator, we spoke about how the story of B12 revealing that he lost his family and was desperate to find a way to save humanity was deeply touching. And the reunion between Doc and Seamus was also especially touching for it being a reunion between two robots. I'm not going to ask how a robot had a child, but maybe it was a case of their consciousness being uploaded into the robot bodies. If you think about other stories with non-human characters, they're often humanoid. Think about Mass Effect, where your character is human, but supporting cast in that game is all human-like aliens, and it makes sense. In Stray, we get robots with square faces that show emotions with emoticons and animations on their screens that make up their head components. Some will sweat when nervous, and some will show a heart when you nuzzle their legs, and some will show tears under their eyes if they're getting emotional. It's just enough to get you feeling the human side of the mechanical inhabitants of this post-apocalyptic world. Another thing about Stray is how little is made clear and how many questions the story left with me. We learned partway through the game from B12 that humans were being wiped out from a plague, and that the plague was released because humans were trying to figure out a way to deal with the waste in the underground. The garbage-consuming bacteria that caused the plague eventually evolved into the Zerks, which consume everything they can. However, we don't have a clue how the companions evolved to be more like humans. Machines don't evolve, at least not typically. There are some comments here or there from B12 that give you little insight if you go around collecting the memory collectibles, but there's still a lot of mystery around exactly how they managed to make themselves so much like their creators. We see the servant companions in the control room, which are likely similar to the original design, but it doesn't explain how the companions of the lower levels all develop their own personalities, wants, and needs. Clementine being so rebellious and believing in the mission to get outside, Momo being so lonely, Doc and Seamus finding their true familial love for each other. All of these character traits are inexplicable, yet the companions themselves have somehow evolved alongside the Zerks to create something that is unique. I love the story of Stray. It's not terribly long, clocking in around 5 or 6 hours or so if you're taking your time, but it's an incredible journey that brings back the old question, what makes us human? It asks you to consider that the connections that we feel with each other might be out there, and that given enough time, the same types of connections might be reachable for anything that has time to develop them. One of the best parts of Stray is the gameplay. It's simple. You are a cat. And that means doing cat things. If you ever interacted with a cat, you know they love climbing. Well, that translates extremely well to Stray, where just about anything and everything is climbable. This makes every place you visit into your personal playground, with a cat's size and agility playing a large role in the exploration of the world. For example, the Slums is comprised of 2 layers, the ground level and the rooftops, and you can get from one level to another with just a few jumps on air conditioning units or pipes along the sides of buildings. With every jump, you're going to see the cat ready itself and get ready for that jump, exactly like a cat does in real life. When you have to take multiple jumps in a row, you see the cat in Stray do just like a real cat would. It readies itself on the first jump and then uses its momentum to carry itself through the rest of the jumps that it needs to make. And when jumping down from a high ledge, you see the cat judging the distance of the ground for a split second before leaping down on its front paws to absorb the impact before letting its back legs come down to center itself on the ground. The animation for the cat's movements with every jump is a perfect representation of how a cat moves throughout its surroundings in the real world. As a side note, I love it when you're walking near a point of interest or a nearby friendly robot and the cat's tail sticks up, because it's just that perfect amount of friendly animation that you see in a real cat that might know you. The cat's size also plays a large role as well, with the cat's small stature being used to sneak into residences, and particularly well in the jail section of the game to slip in between bars and get to areas where Clementine couldn't hope to reach. Most new areas are introduced with the cat going through a small hole in a gate or a crack in a barricade, and it does allow exploration to get a little deeper, as most of the secret areas are places that your small stature is going to allow you to sneak into. It does, however, also present challenges, with some areas being too tall to climb directly or gaps too large to jump, which require you to interact with some materials in the environment. You may have to flip a switch to activate a gate, or knock a board over to use as a walkway that lets you cross a large gap. The cat's ability to puzzle solve also plays along with its physical limitations. Some places might require you to pull a power supply that stops a nearby fan and a vent from turning, allowing you to slide through the vent and get somewhere where you thought you might not be able to reach. Other times might require you to do the most cat thing ever: push things off of a shelf. The second I saw this, I was enamored. Everyone has seen a cat being a jerk and just pushing something off a shelf, a counter, or a desk. And here you have to direct the cat to do that on several occasions throughout the game. Hell, when you first discover B12's drone body, you get it by pushing a box off a shelf and the little drone falls out of it. Something as simple as a cat and the way it interacts with the world made for an amazing gameplay loop for players to enjoy here. There were also great action and stealth sections that were relatively simple, but still had just enough in them for me to feel engaged with those sections throughout multiple playthroughs of the game. The action segments tend to be fast-paced and find the cat running from swarms of Zerk throughout labyrinthian sewers or underground facilities. The stealth sections often come up later in the game, present in the jail and Midtown as you move to avoid the sentinels. Every one of them gets your blood pumping, as both present an immediate danger to the cat, and slipping up for more than a few seconds will result in death and the reset of the section. And you even get to sleep at certain points of the game. Why? Because cats sleep. They sleep a lot. If you don't own a cat, you might not realize they're balls of energy for about 15 to 30 minutes at a time, after which they'll usually sleep for several hours. Here, when you sleep, you gain nothing that benefits your gameplay. You do, however, get to soak in the incredible world that BlueTwelve Studios created. The cat curls up and lays down, and the camera slowly pans out to let you soak in the vistas that surround you, all while playing some of the best music I've heard in the game this year. I mean, just look at how serene this is. And speaking of the world is really something special. Every level feels distinct. Even the parts of the game where you're moving through different sections of the sewer, each section of the sewer feels like a new area. The part where you run through the sewers to reach Doc have a totally different feel than you riding the boat with Momo through the sewers on the opposite side of the city. The slums are really broken down with sheet metal roofing, and they look like they might be held together by duct tape. The streets of the slums are filled with garbage, and residents bundle up for warmth, another sign that the robots have somehow evolved to be more human. You even see distressed robots like Seamus have let themselves rust, as opposed to Momo and some of the other residents of the slum who still have the drive to keep themselves in nice condition. Robots in the slums have even put up neon signs everywhere, which are used to give them some semblance of color in their extremely dark environment. Compare this to Ant Village, which is built very vertical and built around some sort of underground silo. Things are a little cleaner. The residents were not in the slums where they had garbage filling the streets, and they also seem to have a closer-knit community. And then when you get to Midtown, you see a truly cyberpunk neon futurescape. Every exterior is adorned with neon lights, and the streets reflect lights in puddles and wet spots. Each different location has a unique look, be it a small restaurant, a clothing shop, or a barber shop. When you visit each place, you feel like it's a real world, and it leaves you wanting to explore even more. Clementine's apartment stands out as a great location, and you feel like you really get a sense of her personality just from wandering around her place. I also love the hip clothing store, which has really felt like some of the trendy shops I used to see in the San Francisco Bay Area when I lived up there. Midtown has tons of little spaces for you to explore, and every second in this space is a feast for the eyes. The world of Stray feels alive, and it really makes the game replayable, as you're able to find little areas on the second and third playthrough that change how you look at the world. Lastly, let's talk about performance. I played the game on PS5 and I noticed very few performance issues overall. I think I counted 3 times with noticeable frame rate dips throughout my multiple playthroughs, and they all happened in places with a lot going on. If memory serves correct, I think once was in the jail when I had multiple sentinels chasing me, once was in the sewers when I had a ton of Zerks after me, and once was with the Zerks chasing me where Doc was shining the defluxor down to protect you as you make your way across the gap. These frame rate issues never happened a second time in the same place, which makes me think that the optimization, at least on PS5, is pretty well done, but could maybe use some slight touch-ups if possible. Unfortunately, I heard the PC port is in need of some work, as even people with powerful current-gen cards are having frame rate dips and generally low frame rates overall. The movement and animations and interactions do all feel fluid, which is great. And the look of the game is simple, but it has a beautiful art style, and thankfully the performance throughout my playthroughs wasn't bad at all. At least, not enough that it really bothered me at any point. The one thing I can say is that the motion blur is a little extreme on consoles, with visible trailing when you're making the cat run. This is most prominent in dimly lit areas, but thankfully you can adjust the motion blur or even turn it off on the PS5 version of the game. I'm not sure about the PS4 version, but I can only assume the PC port gives players the option as well. Overall on the PS5, the performance was solid, and I can't complain about anything too much as I felt it never detracted from my overall experience. Stray was much more than I expected, and I'm extremely glad that I can enjoy this game again. It's such a short and memorable experience. I feel like most players who give this a chance will come out with positive feelings from this one. Overall, despite some extremely minor technical issues, Stray gave me several playthroughs of great gameplay and a wonderful story experience that made me ask the question, what does it mean to be human? Which was overall impressive for a game with characters that should be so hard to relate to, at least on paper. The journey to help the companions and get the cat back to its home on the surface was fantastic, and I'm looking forward to getting my platinum trophy on this one, and I plan on buying it to support Annapurna and BlueTwelve Studios as a thanks for the great time I had. Please play Stray if you've got a platform to play it on. I don't think you'll regret it. So that's it for the 5.9 direct review of Stray. I'm LittleBobby, and I'd like to thank you all who've made it this far. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to keep up to date on other reviews in the future, as well as our news videos and other content we have on this channel. Thanks again for your time today, and we hope to see you soon.
You